Hello everybody, welcome back to Gelvin Valley. We're just in the process of ripping all of our fields up after harvest. We've removed all the straw, leaving bare fields, and while we don't have seasons in here, this I guess would be our fall tillage or whatever as we prepare our fields for the next go around. I don't know what I'm going to plant this time, but I am happy to see I'm north of zero on the cash and I haven't even sold all my crop, so that's a good thing. You know, speaking of, makes me wonder, where are the prices? Oh, that's this wheat. Those don't look the best. 184. I almost think it can go over 200 a ton, right? Yeah, kind of like barley's up at 265. I think wheat is, for whatever reason, is a bit depressed at the moment, so I may just wait a little while till it gets back up there. And in the meantime, I'll just keep working on these fields. You know, a lot of times I've been using horseplay to kind of figure out all this, and these fields, the way they're shaped, it's pretty hard to just turn a worker loose in the field and expect them to get much of anything done. I think I have auto tractor installed, the mod, so I could, if I hit higher, I think he would go round and around, but I've tried that before, and I think it was better in later versions of Farming Sim. This version here, I think, still had some challenges, but it works great for auto combine. Well, mostly great. I know I had some challenges with it too. I mean, I'll never forget the new field number 38. That silly combine kept looking for a place to escape, jam the header through the fence. So here now, look at that. There's another rock. There's one over here. These are small rocks. We could probably smash them into the soil with a roller, which we'll do after we do all this ripping up. We'll run a roller over it, smash some of the smaller rocks into the soil to prepare for planting, and the larger ones that we're not able to smash we'll pick up. But hopefully a lot of them we can just smash them into the dirt and not have to worry about picking them up. And in terms of something to talk about this particular video, that is something, you know, I was thinking of talking about at some point, and I don't know if it's, you know, if it should be a whole separate type of video for that or just what. But it's this mod, you know, that we have in here affixed to our chisel plow that is ripping up all these rocks out of the ground. I think I've mentioned it before, you know, at where I grew up, our home was basically a rock pile, you know, and it kind of was a small farm in the country, if you will. It was just 5 acres at the time, but Dad always had a few cows, um, mainly for beef cattle. We always had a few chickens and whatnot. And so, but with the cattle in particular, there was a need to put in fences. And I guess it's one of those kinds of work where you say, you know, you're building character and all that, but man alive, it was a royal pain digging you know, post holes for putting in a fence. And usually, I think in those days, the way Dad had us do it, it wasn't, you know, we would dig a big post hole for the anchor post, kind of the one on the end or the one in the corners, if you will. And my dad, he likes building stuff to last. He would always have us put in a railroad tie kind of on the corner, so it would be a big hole. Although, you know, I saw a fence here the other day. Oh, there's a nice big rock. That one ain't gonna smash in. Yeah, we're gonna need to pick him up. I saw a fence here the other day where someone used a sawed-off telephone pole. It was just massive, you know, that they had put in kind of for it to hold a gate and whatnot. But Dad always kind of liked telephone poles. Let me fold this up. We'll get on the road. Go through our very narrow door. Just pretend that it makes it through with no scraping. So there was just plenty of rock all over the place. I think it has something to do with the volcanic soil, and I don't know. For whatever reason, when you get down to the valley soil, the darker dirt, it just doesn't have the rocks in it that the red dirt up in the hills had, where our home was and where I worked on the farm. And some places are just brutal for the size and number of rocks, that litter the premises. And it's just kind of a fact of life, that we've had to deal with. And I know, oh, that was interesting. That car kind of took a nosedive through the road. Maybe the spline kind of took a dip there. So, kind of in recognition of that, if you will, I'll just take the back. Oh, wait a minute. We'll see if I can make it through the gate. I was going to say, I don't think I've modded this gate down here, so maybe it's not going to let me through. See if I can sneak through. Maybe I will. Aim straight. Aha, there we go. But I may have trouble up here in the woods. I just like driving through here, driving up through the woods. It's kind of a neat little thing. I remember doing it on the farm. Hear the birds sing, kind of come the back way up to this field. It's actually pretty steep in here. Getting up the hill, up to our Stonehenge field. This is the one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Oh, very good, very good. Made it through the door. This is an interesting fence. If there's anybody that's watching this from the UK over there, I'd be curious. Are there fences? Is this just artistic license he took in this map to put a curved fence in here? Or do you all have a lot of curved fences? Is this indicative that there was a house here once upon a time? We don't have a lot of stone fences like that over here, so, oops, I'm going to turn off my, there we go. So maybe there's an answer to that isn't readily apparent to any ink. Yeah, here, actually just this past evening, I've had a lot of family functions to attend here lately, as my youngest sister and her husband are visiting from the Midwest. They're several states away, so always a lot of family get-togethers, they kind of come to the area. And we went to have some family pictures taken, of all of us while we're here together. And the place chosen was, well, doesn't matter what it's called, but it was one of my relatives. They have a pasture and some hazelnut orchards and a hay field and some whatnot on their property. And they've done some construction activity on the place and have pulled some massive boulders out of the ground. I got some pictures of them. Maybe at some point I can share them in here, but they're just huge. They are not something you dig out of the hill. They are the hill. That's how big they are. And, these here, they were taller than, my wife and I, we stood by one of them, and it was taller than we were. There was another one that was like twice our height, at least. And I realized there's going to be bigger rocks around, too. It's just, these are just coming from this isn't a quarry. This is just out of the earth, out of fields, places where you wouldn't necessarily expect it. Oh, there was a rock that digged up kind of on the corner there. So it's just, I don't know what you would have done if you'd had to dig a post hole where a rock the size of a VW bus, or whatever, had been pulled out. I mean, it'd be literally impossible. Unless you literally could bore a hole through it, or I know, like, one time when we were kids, my dad was putting in a corral, and where the anchor post went, after we laid the post down, it had to go in a certain spot. We'd already painstakingly dug the holes for all the other posts and got them set, and so this anchor post where the gate was going to hang from had to go in this one spot, and there was just a big old boulder in the way. and we literally took it out with dynamite and pulled it out in pieces, made a massive hole, and to the point to where we actually had to fill it back in to so we could get a post in there and hold it upright or whatever. But rocks are a challenge, a problem, something we've had to deal with in this area in our whole life. And there's some big ones, little ones, everywhere in between. I got some pictures of the fields that if you looked at them, you would almost think that someone brought a truckload of rock and deliberately spread it over a certain area. Oh, hey, here's a dandy. Look at that. We are pulling. It's kind of sitting a little funny there. That's a big old boulder. Yeah, occasionally those would get pulled out of the field where places that I grew up and so but yeah, sometimes in the rock are so thick and there might even be little ones that it almost looks like it was deliberately dumped there. That someone just brought a load in and dumped it there to kind of rock up the road, if you will, so that people could drive on it or whatever. And sometimes that is indeed done, but I guess what I'm referring to is places where it was not done and it appears that it was just gravel or whatever. So in some ways, it's amazing sometimes that some of these farmers have been able to eke out a living on these rocky hills and whatnot. And I know we're not the only ones to deal with rocks. I mean, goodness, they're everywhere. I know I've seen, whether it's like the rock walls in this map, or I've seen a lot of them in videos I've watched, like on the UK and some of the farming that had to be done over there. There's a reason, I suppose, that the UK has so many stone houses. All those rocks had to come from somewhere, and I imagine a lot of them back in the day came straight out of the fields. One YouTuber I really enjoy listening to in the UK is Harry's Farm. Just love watching his videos, and some of the more recent ones here, he's having a guy work on a stone fence for one of his properties, and it's just an outstanding job this craftsman is doing. It's just a work of art, and I imagine back in the day, there probably were a lot of people skilled at putting those kinds of fences together. I mean, you haul up all this rock out of the field and get it out of your way. Well, you got to have some place to put it, and you need a fence. So, kill two birds with one stone, and you put up a fence. And so I don't know if it's a dying art anymore, or if it's I don't know just how expensive it is to put up a fence like that. But the ones I've seen on his videos are just a work of art, just look outstanding. So I imagine he's paying a price to have that done. Now the rocks in our area tend to be soft, somewhat soft, if you will. They A lot of them can easily be split until they don't. I mean, sometimes it's you can't explain it, can't don't know why. You look at a rock, it looks solid as as everything, and then you barely ping it with a hammer and it splits apart. And then there's other ones you can beat yourself senseless on all day long, and they never do anything but chip off. So yeah, I mean, there's kind of just a variety with all that of the different rocks and what you're able to do with them. But rest assured, dynamite takes care of all of them and blasts them apart. So we did a lot of that back in the day too. But given that we had all of these errors, another rock. So I have rocks on the brain, I think, and when I discovered Farming Simulator, and then discovered there was this thing called modding. Well, one of the things that came to mind was, well, what's something that I can mod? And I don't know that I'd even thought much of the rock aspect of it. And then I remember, I think I read a comment somewhere that someone had left on a forum, might have even been the American Eagles forum, I don't recall, but just commenting about rocks and that they were considering working on a trigger or something for a field. I know where we're at. If you go across the ridge of the hill right at the top, for some reason, that tends to be a place that's a breeding ground for rocks. I don't know why that is, it just is. There's just a number of ridges, I think of the farm where I worked on, that was pretty common. Right at the cusp of the hill, there'd be Rock City. And so someone was saying, maybe there'd be a way to build this into a map so we could have rocks to deal with or what have you. And so kind of from that comment, I had the idea, all of a sudden thought, it's like, that's right. Back on the farm, anytime we ran the chisel plow in particular over a field or a cultivator, I think even a plow will do it. When you work the soil where there's rocks, well, you're probably going to dig up a few. And so it's like, how cool would it be to have a mod that digs up rocks? So that's kind of how we ended up with this one here that I'm using on this particular chisel plow. But really, whether it's this or cultivator or regular moldboard plow, any of them with this script is designed to go on all of them and allow for digging up of rocks. But it's a script, and I had no idea how to how to do it. I didn't know anything about modding, and some may argue whoops, I don't know how that happened. I think my phone is having issues. Some may still argue I still don't know what I'm doing, and they'd be right. I especially don't know what I'm doing when it comes to YouTubing. Um, and Lua coding, I mean, I'm an accountant in my day job, so I'm not a computer programmer. So knowing how to program something, period, in any language is just not something I know how to do. And I still don't. But still, I wanted to make a mod, where you could come out here with a chisel plow, kind of like we have, and dig up a few rocks. So, I mean, it's probably a bigger discussion than most people would even be interested in, but there was all kinds of things along the way that had to be figured out. So I started, the Giants, when they make the game, to help out modders, and really it's a necessity. They have to tell you a few things on how to make mods. Otherwise, nobody can make any mods unless they strictly observed what they could see. And scripts in particular, the Lua scripts, there's a lot of them that the Giants use to run their engine and do stuff. I mean, this tractor has multiple scripts on it. They have like the vehicle Lua script, which is thousands and thousands of bits, lines of code long. And then there's others, it's also steerable, it's drivable, so all these different, it's hireable, all these different things and attributes of it that make it do what it does, are all generated by a Lua script. And this is all separate from the model itself and that kind of thing, the graphical aspect of it. So one of the things I did was try to study the Lua scripts that the Giants gave, and they don't give you all of them. They give you a few, so just enough to help you. Oh, there's someone's using the printer in the background. I don't know if that comes through. Hopefully they're not printing a novel, whoever it is. So there's a few scripts to look at to get an idea of what to do. And so because um, because bringing in a rock is generating a 3D object on the map, one of the things that came to mind that I wanted to study in particular was the baler script. Now we all know how a baler operates, and when you run a baler, it periodically spits out a bale, right? So I wanted to learn that line of code where the bale was generated in particular because I figured that would give me a clue as to what I needed to do to generate a rock. And for a while, I mean, I borrowed a lot of parts from the baler script, if you will, to build the rock script and to that printer's annoying. I don't know if that's coming through. Um, so there's a lot of parts I gathered from the Baylor Lewis script to teach me how to do it, but it still wasn't enough. There are just so many nuances. So, I could figure out some things, but in terms of getting it to work and putting it on a piece of equipment, I really needed a lot more help. And I did not know up from down in terms of running a script anyhow. Some of just the basics of Lewis. So I bought a book, that taught me a little bit of Lewis, some of the basic syntax, if you will, how to do things. And it barely scratches the surface, in terms of telling a person kind of what needs to be done. Actually, I got a couple books. I think I got the modding book for dummies. It had something in there on the honk script, and the author was kind enough to describe, a number of things that were being done in that particular script, which were really helpful. And I probably read that section 50 times. When you don't know something, you got to read it over and over and over, and hopefully something sticks a little bit each time. But even that really wasn't ultimately enough. Whoa, that's a dandy rock. Look at that. So ultimately, what I did or tried to do is I kind of went hat in hand to some other modders who I knew were Lewis scripters or had worked on Lewis scripting mods. So I won't say who all I sent them to. Um, this was back in the days of FSUK, but I basically went to him and I just said, would you be willing to mentor me in creating a mod and working through something? I think I kind of described what I wanted to do, and I just, I said, I'll be honest, I don't know anything. I said, I'm willing to learn. I don't want you to just do it for me. That's not my motive. I said, I really want to learn. I'd like to have a teacher, and there just isn't that much information out there for those of us, who don't know how to do it to be able to figure it out. So eventually someone took me up on that, and maybe that's let me see how much time I have into this so far. Yeah, that's maybe a topic for another time that I can explore a little bit more. But his name was Centro. It's spelled Xentro, and he had made a number of scripts, Lewis scripts in various mods. Like he had for Farm Sim 15, I think he made what's called the Hardpoint mod, um, which was just amazing. I mean, you take an existing mod or piece of equipment, if you will, and you put attachments on it, like in your workshop. Just like a farmer would take something into his shop and make modifications to it, weld this on or that on, add attachments. That kind of simulated the add-in game, so he made that and various other things. I know he made the model and numerous scripts for a pair of skid steers. I think that was part of the mod contest, and a number of things. I can't begin to relate, all the scripts that he's made over the years. So he actually um, took me up on it and mentored me through this particular script and basically taught me. And I will say, I mean, there was a few times he had mercy on me and helped me do something that I just flat out couldn't figure out, didn't know how to do. But in the process, really gave me a workout and helped me learn some of the basics on how to do some Lewis scripting. And so I'm very grateful for what he helped me do. Um, More so for the experience, as I look back on it versus making a silly mod. I mean, the mod part was fun, and there was lots of other people. Eventually, it got released, and other people could enjoy it too. Those who also have rocks in their head, I guess. But it was just an awesome experience to work with someone thousands of miles away, and to learn a little how to do this. And it's that's how the modding community should work, in my estimation. But I do have to admit, it probably took well, I guess I've never asked him how much of his time it took, because there would be communication almost daily, with questions I had or questions he would ask me because he was trying to teach me. So he would many times ask me questions as to what I saw on a particular text or Lua file. He'd have me read something and then say, I want to ask, some questions about it. And so a lot of the communication was that too, just as I learned, some of the things and then learned to see what I was reading in these Lua scripts. So pretty cool. And I'm not saying every modder needs to be or has the ability to be a teacher. And that's one of the things that encouraged me about Zentro is he uh, he wasn't a professional programmer either. So I figured, well, if he can figure it out, I mean, he was a woodcutter, if I'm not mistaken. So like the machinery that we sometimes use in game to cut down trees, I forget what those are called. It's not the Ponce Buffalo or whatever. It's yeah, I I should know the name of it. Here, let me just go find it. I come in here. Where's the not forestry equipment? Okay, the Scorpion King. Yeah, not the Buffalo, the Scorpion King. Yeah, so he drives in one of these in real life. That's what his day job is. And he happens to know how to write Lua code as a modder. Oh, that dug out a dandy right at the end. Another big old boulder. So anything I know in Lua at all, learning to mod that is pretty much due to him. I mean, I work pretty hard too, but I have no doubt I tested his patience. I don't know how many times, probably. He was very kind, um, and so I appreciate all that, but it probably took a fair amount of his time to do that. And so, probably not every modder is going to be willing to just do that. And actually, he kind of left the modding scene shortly following all that. So um, he had been at working on farm sim stuff but quite a bit longer than I had. I think I was just coming into the game and kind of when he was on his way out. But fortunately, he stuck around to help me out and get me started in that, and I just really appreciate it. Just a nice thing for him to do, and he gave me one little bit of advice too, which has applicability beyond modding and what have you. He said in terms of learning how to, in this case, Lua script or whatever, he said there's nothing like trying to fix other people's problems and answering their questions. So one of the things he asked me to consider doing, and I tried to do it, was to answer other people's questions. And the funny thing is, I did a ton of this on FSUK, and it's kind of a funny thing. People start to look at you and they say, "Well, wow, you know a lot of stuff." Well, no, no, I didn't. The funny thing is that people maybe didn't understand is very few of those questions that I answered did I have a clue, what I was doing. I didn't know the answer getting into it, and those ones where I couldn't find the answer, maybe I would just give up. But I think he was right. There was so many opportunities to try to help people that had some question, and for whatever reason they weren't able to figure it out on their own or didn't want to take the time, and it just was a good way to learn. And some were easy, some were hard, some didn't involve Lua scripting at all. But any of them where I could try to fit in a Lua script, I would do it, just to try to force myself to learn and then at the same time hopefully help someone else, figure out whatever their problem was and make it easy for them. So I think that was pretty good counsel. And like I say, just a straight up guy. He was Swedish, as I recall. So I've never been to Sweden. I think one of my brothers has been to Sweden. If I ever do go there, I would like to look him up and at least shake the man's hand for being willing to put up with a knucklehead like me trying to learn how to do a few things. So maybe one of those things that when a person learns a skill and trying to help pay it forward, if you will, and help someone else out, it's a good thing to do. So, and I know that's like you take Atomic 67, one of my friends that I met on here, he's definitely paying it forward. He's trying to turn me into a YouTuber, like putting a square peg in a round hole, probably in a lot of ways. But I really appreciate all the help he's given me, and whether it's in putting together a thumbnail or just various tidbits. And by the way, one of his tidbits was to have shorter videos, and I think I've hit the half-hour limit. So I think what I'm going to do is terminate the episode here. So thank you all for watching, coming along for the ride, if you will. Hopefully nobody got too bored. Hope you have a good day, good afternoon, wherever you are, and I'll see you again next time. Take care until then.